I want to ask you which are the difficulties to perform a show from a serial killer. So this in Spain we have not too much serial killers in our history. And in the United States it's more common that some people last this thing. So which are the difficulties to perform this show?
We'll sort of over to Robbie really, because he's part of the development team of who discovered the story and decided with you guys that, you know, you'd feel that the story of Charles Manson's been told quite a lot, but they felt that there was a new something to be said about him.
Yeah, I think that's always the thing with these stories is they're quite well known, especially Manson. He's one of the most famous true crime sort of figures of all time. So finding a new angle is really the key, and also finding the materials which sort of let you tell that new angle. And we were really fortunate to come across this incredible collection of tapes recorded over 20 years, which was the first time Charles Manson really drops his guard and shows who he kind of is underneath the mask and the performance that he puts on during 90% of the other interviews he gave. I think that's what makes our series unique, is just we have material that really gives you a unique insight into such a notorious figure.
It's Charles Manson in Charles Manson's own words, and I think it's probably the definitive documentary series on him, because I don't think there is another archive library like that out there that anyone will uncover again. And to Robbie's point, sort of as filmmakers, what we decide to do is always bring new elements or angles or revelations to a story. And through the archive and all of these conversations, he admits to many different things that we've never heard about before. We get into nuances and details about his upbringing, his relationship with his mother, actually time that no one knew about before, where he lived in Mexico and actually committed crimes and murders, which he alludes to quite strongly in the series. So for us, it was a story we could revisit because we had something really exciting and new to say about it.
Some of the challenges when you make true crime are really trying to have convincing people that has really affected their lives, and particularly this group of people. This is 50, 60 years they've been dealing with the aftermath of this story. So building the trust, it takes months of careful work from development as we move into production, which is when I take over from Robert and the team, is then making sure that trust is there, that you're going to tell their story. They've been burned by the media, they've been made out to be crazy or liars and all different things in these stories, and to try and get people to continue to talk, show them the respect of that it still emotionally affects them, but get the story out that you need. That's one of the biggest challenges on making these, because we're making film, television, this is their real life, and you have to ensure that you respect that at all times.
Do you think that there is a danger to showing up the life and the cases of these crimes? Because sometimes here from Spain we receive that some serial killers are Yes, they are
Copycats.
Copycats.
Turned into God.
I think there's always a danger of that, and I think that's why for us it was about taking him off a pedestal. I think he's become this big cultural icon, over many, many decades. So through the audio and through the series, we try and remove the mask and the legend, and actually look at him as he was more of a human, he was flawed. So rather than heroing the things that he did and allowing people to celebrate him as a cultural icon, it's very much about taking that away and taking off the pedestal, and being very conscious, to Kate's point as well, about there were real victims that have had to live with this for decades, and giving them a voice, and ideally looking for a way to give people closure on the story through telling it in such an immersive way.
I think as well, that a lot of true crime series focus on what happened, on the details of the crime, but we were really keen to look at the why. It's called Making Manson. It's about the circumstances that create a figure like Charles Manson. And I think only through having conversations about that can we really get to the point where people like him aren't, created in the future. If we don't really understand how such a notorious figure, where they come from, then I think we're in danger of continuing to have these people come up. But the more we can understand where somebody like Manson comes from, what motivated him to do such horrific things, that's the only way that we are going to end up getting to a place where, that doesn't happen.
And do you think that now in the present, do we have more serial killers? Or now we live in a time that it's all over-controlled, over-investigated, and these figures cannot work or cannot live in.
We would talk a lot amongst the team about, could this happen today, this particular story? And unfortunately, we sort of agreed that yes, it could. I'm not sure there are more. I think, unfortunately, murder and this sort of vicious crime seems to be endemic across the world, across the ages. I mean, you can go way back before Manson's time and then right the way up to now. And unfortunately, there are just people out there that, use violence and murder to get their point across. But, without, we understand that there's an element of this that is feeding that, that hunger at the moment where people love following true crime. But we really did try and, with all the series we made a series about Jeffrey Dahmer as well. And similarly, you really can see the sort of the steps that happened that made that happen. And I think if we can, sort of try and understand and all the murders that we hear about now, they don't just come from nowhere and suddenly decide to go out and kill people. So it's a big societal problem that I'm afraid was a problem then and is still a problem. I think another Manson could easily happen. Obviously, they can spread their influence much easier through the social media. Actually, Manson's impact was fairly isolated in a small part of LA. If he was alive today with the kind of charm that he has, I think his reach would have stretched much further, and actually probably his impact would have been even greater. But so it's a tricky one.
No, I think you answered that, yeah.
I want to end the interview because from Spain we see that the United States is living a strange moment with this last shot with the assassination of this political figure. I am filmmaker too from fiction, so I want to ask you if you think that the freedom of making films, making documentaries is in danger in this global state that we have now, or the near future that we are going to live are going to be as free as the years that we have lived from our one.
I think, using Making Manson as an example, we had fantastic partners in Peacock who gave us a really healthy budget to tell this story in the most in-depth way. And yes, there's an interesting political landscape in the US at the moment. It does make films like this slightly harder to produce. But I think with the partners that we have and the networks that we work with, they are backing projects like ours, and I think they will continue to do so. We'll see what happens in the future. Obviously, it is a volatile time over there. But I think, using this again as an example, many networks are backing projects where we're telling true stories, true crime, and they're allowing journalists and documentarians to have the healthy budgets to go out there and to do it. And I think, the freedom to do that will continue to be there.